Hail adventures! Pawn Star here with Pawn Star Gaming. Guys, today I wanted to do a video that was basically over at least one of my first loves and passions of the MMORPG community, and that's World of Warcraft. I've been playing this thing since, man, beta actually. I can remember coming over from EverQuest with my guild. They got some beta keys, and I was given one in the guild. Our guild was Lucid Vision, and we were a PK guild in EverQuest. But either way, we made it over to World of Warcraft and just started leveling our characters. I can remember stealthing all the way from Orgrimmar on an Orc Rogue all the way to Stormwind in hopes of finding some other low level player to kill and possibly take their stuff like we did in EverQuest. And obviously, it didn't work out that way. I ended up making it to the town guards and I was killed. But hey, it was a fun experience stealthing over there. My adrenaline was going pretty much every time I went by a high level character or some red looking NPC that wanted to kill me. And yeah, it was really cool. Once beta was over, I can remember leveling up a mage and a priest and just really enjoying the grind. I mean, there was really nothing better than that first initial release of the game and that rush to level 50 or whatever 60 it was. At that point, I can remember doing Molten Core Sundays on a paladin and doing PvP throughout the week. I remember doing PvP for 16 hours a day for a lieutenant commander title and I believe a PvP mount. And yeah, I was felt pretty accomplished with all that time I put in. Either way, after that, I played that paladin all the way up until the end of Burning Crusade, where I ended up playing a hunter. Took that hunter all the way up through the end of Warlords of Draenor, where I then started playing tons and tons of different classes, and that was when I realized how wonderful World of Warcraft had done their class system. Now, obviously, there's always been a flavor of the month, and different characters are more powerful at different times, and some are weaker than others. But for the most part, the gameplay and the fluidity of the character classes was pretty spot on. Once I finally played a warrior, I definitely and very quickly fell in love with it at max level, and I really never looked back at the end of Warlords of Draenor. It just felt right. It was a super strong and fun class for me, and that's kind of what I've stuck with since then. So there was never any issue as far as the gameplay goes because to me, it just felt right. I've played a lot of other MMORPGs, so I had seen the differences in games like Shadowbane and EverQuest and Final Fantasy 14 and ArcAge and just Guild Wars 2, Guild Wars 1. I mean, the list goes on and on. For the most part, you name it, and I've played it. So I could definitely see where World of Warcraft had definitely taken the cake when it came to the gameplay and the fluidity of the class system itself. At the beginning of BFA, I think I was probably at some of my most hardcore play times where I was doing mythic dungeons, I was doing PvP, and I was even raid leading for the very first raid. I really, really was into the game, but once we cleared that first raid, we had done heroic and we had broke into mythic, and my friends started to stale out and not want to log in as much, and people were pretty much just logging in for the raid. And that's when everything started to hit me. I then became a very casual player, and this most recent expansion, that's exactly what I was. We all rushed to get to the max level once again, and then they all kind of died off and stopped playing again. I then started doing more transmog runs and barely doing any of the raids. I did a lot more PvP, but as you guys know, PvP right now is more so just who's got the better gear. Now, there is a little bit of skill involved, but most of it does tend to be gear. After a while and not being able to find a solid organized PvP group and just seeing all the people guild hop from guild to guild based on how far into progression of mythic they were, things got pretty stale, and I realized that's exactly what happens every single expansion. Really, today what I wanted to talk about was kind of why World of Warcraft has become what it has became and what made me finally make the jump all the way to Ultima Online Outlands, and I haven't been logging into World of Warcraft at all lately. And in this video, I wanted to just go over a lot of those reasons, and I don't necessarily want it to be a bashing World of Warcraft because we all love this game. It's just so easy to poke fun at and say all the negative things that this game has because honestly, it feels like they continue to just shoot themselves in the foot over and over and over again. And I found a game that definitely does the opposite of all those things that they keep messing up on, that the community keeps crying out to have changed. And this community here, Ultima Online Outlands, has really hit the nail on the head and everything that you would possibly want in an MMORPG. Now, before this video even starts, go ahead, hit pause, and write down 5 different things that you would love to see in an MMORPG. Do that, and then go ahead and hit play. And let's see how many of those we actually hit. The first thing I really wanted to talk about was the storyline. Now, I do really enjoy the World of Warcraft storyline as a whole. The cinematics are beautifully done, and just the characters are really, really entrancing, I guess you could say. Thrall is a badass, and Anduin's pretty cool for some, weak anime character. And then you have Sylvanas, who's just overall a badass. Some of the things like the jailer, I'm not too keen on as far as Shadowlands goes, but for the most part, I personally have enjoyed the World of Warcraft storyline. But one thing I haven't liked is that in order to find out the full storyline, you have to find other mediums of lore, like books and comics and this and that. If I play an MMORPG that has a story to it, I want to play the MMORPG that has a story to it, not have to have a quest in real life just to find out what actually went through Jaina's mind before she did something terrible to the Keltyrans. In UO, you create your own story. Politics between guilds, rivalries between different players that you've met and interacted with in dungeons or in guilds separately. There's even certain role-playing guilds like the orcs who dress up and role-play like orcs. They literally have their own language that they will try to talk to you in and ask for tribute, and if you don't give them tribute, they're gonna kill you. Another really cool one is the U Militia, who just does all kinds of good stuff and does everything good for the Outlands community. The VOV are a bunch of bloodthirsty vampires, and then there's Path, who goes and finds out murderers who are trying to kill you in dungeons and fights for justice. There's even a built-in story from Eric Gray, who has taken all of these custom-made towns that Owen has made and given them a backstory. He's written all kinds of different quests and stories that have turned into these giant, beautiful scenarios and campaigns that we've went on all the way. So, for instance, the Prevelia Manor was under siege not too long ago by a bunch of what were called Uruktan orcs. Now, these Uruktan orcs were real savage, and they just came and they conquered everything in front of them, and they were super, super strong. Now, once we were able to, as a server, defend them from the Prevelia Manor, where the queen was sick inside from a curse from a previous story, then they retreated back into the Uruktan Bluffs, where there is now a high-end, really, really tough dungeon that is not for the faint of heart. I'm also really curious as to what would have happened if we weren't able to defend the manor and the queen died. Would the dungeon had been inside the Prevelia Manor at that point and the Uruktan Bluffs? Who knows? But all of the events end up affecting what happens in the Outlands world, also known as Avedon as a whole. Every MMO claims to have a player-driven economy, but in World of Warcraft, WoW crafting becomes useless after roughly the first month or two of any expansion. Raid gear is literally way better, and some of the materials for crafted gear are typically in the raid that drops better gear. So why even bother? A lot of times the random equipment that you get in dungeons, you can't sell on the auction house for anything other than just transmogs. And so typically what happens is people just disenchant those into materials that they can then sell to help level their crafting. I can remember when World of Warcraft first released, or the now classic first released, and having a couple gold was really a big deal. It was really neat. Then all of a sudden, the influx of mages farming Zul'Farrak really took over for Classic, and suddenly the economy plummeted. And then there really wasn't a need for gold, because what do you really use it for? You don't use it for anything, actually. You don't really post that you're selling a certain piece of gear, meet them at a place, and give them gold for said piece of gear. You don't really make trades for said piece of gear. All in all, you just put your items on an auction house and just wait for it to sell. Sometimes it takes weeks, sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes a year. And then the payoff is great, or maybe it's not great at all. Typically, what I had been doing recently is using my gold just to play the game for free. That's right, I turned it into a WoW token because I didn't really want to pay the $15 a month, but gold was just so easy to come by. Why wouldn't you just turn it into free playtime? In Ultima Online Outlands, it's really personable. There is a Discord channel that you can post what you're buying, and one where you can post what you're selling, and you search through that and you find a good bargain and you message that person. You set up a time, you meet them at Shelter Island per se, and you give them a check for the amount of gold that you guys agreed upon, and you walk away with your item. You start to really find out who is selling what and who has a good buy and who doesn't have a good buy but always has good stock. Crafting is everything. You literally can have a vendor in your house, or you could run a vendor house that people rent spots for that you can place your goods on. Currently, I run 3 vendors, all with high-end weapons and crafting resources, and it definitely helps pay the way for me to try new templates and have a nice boathouse that is sought out by many people. There's also an economy for rares. Different items that are extremely rare, or there's a limited source of, or was from an event that sell for a large amount of gold. You can get your hands on these in many different ways, but one thing's for sure is that they all have a price for them that was set by the community itself and based off of what people are willing to pay for. The owner of Ultima Online Outland server has put into effect different gold sinks that where the server actually eats up money, therefore keeping the economy strong without inflation from monsters constantly dropping gold as players kill them. There's things like a raffle, which is a lottery at every week where you can buy tickets, and then half of the gold that was put into this lottery will be given to a player at random. It sinks about 20, 40, 50 million even sometimes every week, and it definitely helps to keep the economy in check. One of the biggest things that Ultima Online is known for is player housing. I think it was rumored that World of Warcraft was supposed to have an instanced player housing, but it never really came to pass. I've seen tons and tons of videos showing that same gate in Stormwind that was supposed to go to an area where players could have a house. I'm not really sure why they never let that come, as once again, I think that could have been a great gold sink to help with the economy. There's so many different things that World of Warcraft could have done to make a good player-driven economy that they never really did. In UO, there is a certain amount of land, and the price of real estate increases based on the land available versus the amount of players. To offset that, there is some instant housing, but the real ballers have houses on land. Decorating is probably the most fun aspect of housing, and also it's a place to store your resources and rares that people sell. There are all these like PvP fights that happen right outside your house in your neighborhood, and you come to either love or hate your neighbors based on what type of neighbors you have. On Ultima Online Outlands, Owen has once again created some really, really good looking houses in addition of the Ultima Online classic houses. If you're in a really successful guild and your guild actually gets to a certain prestige level, as they call it, then Owen will actually grant you and your guild a guild island with a guild house. And guild houses are obviously just headquarters for guilds to meet and, hang out before they maybe go do activities or just spend the day drinking beer and having a good time together. Now, you don't necessarily have to be leveled up in order to have a guild house, as any house will work as a guild house, and they typically do. Only the prestige, high level guilds end up getting these houses that have been around for some time and do a lot of content together. I'm currently in a guild that's called Sin. I've been playing with them since we played on a different server a long time ago, and they are one of the oldest guilds on the server. We do currently have our own guild island along with a custom guild house, and as you guys can see, there's always people in there doing something. It's a great place for us and our alliance to meet up and just to have a great time. PvP is a very hot topic in games today. It's always funny because a lot of games start out, they have their announcement trailer and the behind the scenes write up of what all they're going to offer, and they focus a ton on PvP. And I think that is has a lot to do with the fact that everybody always wants a really strong PvP game, and then all of a sudden once those people get the game real hyped up, then the majority comes and they decide that they don't want something super, super hard and mean and hurt your feelings in the battlefield. So this one is actually really funny. Now, keep in mind, earlier I said I was PvPing 16 hours a day in World of Warcraft. And eventually, as I got more PvP gear back then, we were steamrolling people who didn't have it. Now, that was way back in Burning Crusade era and prior to that. And the same holds true in the current Shadowlands expansion pack. And the gap is so huge in honor gear to conquest gear that there's really just no chance once you start getting rated battleground gear to even take many hits from the unequipped PvP gear guys. It's actually really funny, but eventually it becomes old and you just need a challenge. In Ultima Online, it's extremely skill based. And to be honest, I find it similar to League of Legends, but with more than 4 spells and abilities per whatever template you're using. Majory has 64 different spells. Pair that with, you could either use a sword, an axe, a mace. The combinations go on. You could even have your dragons help fight you that are stealth because they are hidden dragons called smoke dragons. There is so many different ways that you can PvP, from just being, like I had just said, a stealth mage with some stealth dragons, waiting for that perfect opportunity while you are stalking your prey and they're fighting some monsters, and then they're like midway or low way life, and you tell your pets to kill him while you drop a combo on them, killing them instantly. There is, which that would be PKing. You can just get into an argument over a spawn because you're tired of them killing all the dragons in the area or the monsters in the area, and you want the monsters for yourself and the gold for yourself, so you kill them. Maybe you just don't like that guy and you've seen him talk in Discord and you decide you want to kill him. That's how PvP works in Ultima Online. There is a criminal flag where you are blue if you're an innocent player, and the second you do a negative action on somebody, you become gray for a certain amount of period of time, and anyone can freely attack you, and typically they do so, unless they're just scared. After you kill 5 players, you become red, which is what's called a murderer, PKer, and then you are red for a certain amount of time or for the rest of your career. It's not uncommon for people to make characters with the sole intention of just going red and killing people while they're on that character. There's also is instanced PvP in the form of what's called town struggles, which are actually a lot of fun. There's different capture points that you and your team go and sit on, and while gaining points, can also take points from the other team just by killing them and taking a percentage of their points. It is not uncommon for everybody to get in a Discord channel and have a great form of communication with somebody leading the pack, and typically the communicating teams win over the ones who don't win. It's also in a town where players are actively crafting or trading or just sitting at their bank showing off their cool clothes. So it creates a sense of, liveness to the server when you're seeing people fight right there in the middle of town because of a town struggle, as it's called. There's flashpoints in dungeons, which are very similar to town struggles, but they're in dungeons with the risk of monsters killing you. There's boss raiding. So if my guild is possibly killing a boss, they just summoned it, and another guild sees 20 different Sin members running to the boss, they might call it out in their alliance chat. Therefore, their alliance coming to kill the boss and try to take it from us, also trying to kill us. So there is a little bit of competition in the raiding, which makes it a lot of fun. There's different houses that will collapse after a certain period of time when players don't refresh them and or log in, and this always becomes a huge PvP battle as it announces when a house is what's called in danger of collapsing. PKs and murderers, as we just discussed, there is guilds that sole purpose is just murdering people and ravaging through the dungeons, killing players. And there's also guilds that sole purpose is combating those PKs and murderers. One of the best things about the PvP is that, unlike in World of Warcraft, you can actually talk to the person that you just killed or are fighting against. It's not uncommon to see somebody laughing at another person while they're fighting or calling them a noob or something like that. But at the same time, for whatever reason, the game doesn't seem to get toxic to the point of making you want to log off like in League of Legends, where every little thing you do, you're getting trash talked. There is a certain form of honor and respect in the PvP. At the same time, there's a lot of shit talking that goes on as well. There is a Discord PvP channel where people are constantly talking crap to each other and saying how they owned each other or their guild owned their guild. Tons and tons of competition in the form of PvP, and there's even arena duels and tournaments that happen weekly in the form of either 1v1 or 2v2. And with all that being said and all the ego trips and shit talking that happens, obviously guild wars happen. It's not uncommon for somebody to get upset with somebody, break off from the same guild that they're in, create their own guild, and say that, hey, your guild is kill on sight now. And then next thing you know, there is a big feud going on between this guild and that guild, which creates so much fun in keeping a server alive and political. I've already talked about it a little bit, but I do want to dive deeper into it, and that's the end game. If you guys remember, in Classic especially, but however, both Classic and Retail, how many of us logged in once a week to do the weekly raid? And then maybe once a week to go get our Mythic Key done, and then we're off for the week. Maybe we get some extra time or we're bored and we start doing transmog runs or maybe some PvP, but for the most part, I would say that a large percentage of World of Warcraft players are just logging in once a week for that raid, maybe twice depending on their guild's raid schedule, and that's World of Warcraft for them. In Ultima Online Outlands, I find myself never running out of things to do. Maybe 1 second I'm killing monsters deep in Ossuary 4 for experience, and then suddenly a guildie calls out that a boss is up and we all rally to go kill it. After it's done, maybe 2 or 3 of us go and do a super hard dungeon together, or we all go and summon some more bosses. Maybe we jump out to sea and we become pirates for the day and sinking enemy ships or NPC ships. Sure, we have planned activities, but a lot of the stuff is sporadic and seemingly endless, creating a level of immersion that just really can't be replicated. Also, there is solo in-game content in the form of, as we talked about earlier, Ericton Bluffs is a very difficult dungeon. It's not uncommon to see one person down there doing a pretty dang good job trying to kill those high-end level monsters and raking in a killing in the form of gold. And I know you guys just heard me say it, and that's experience. That's right. There is experience in Ultima Online Outlands, and that's actually works out pretty well. Yes, you do level things called aspects and your mastery chain and even your codex, but what's really cool, if you guys know in World of Warcraft how, yes, I may be a max level character, and yes, I can play with my little brother that's level 30 or whatever. However, I'm not gaining any benefit from it other than just the matter that I am playing with my little brother or whoever it is that has a low level character. In Ultima Online Outlands, a newer character can participate in high end game content, and they will also reap a reward as well. Also, something else that's really cool is that even if my aspect gear is leveled up to the max and I have a full mastery chain, then those abilities become immediately disabled the second I engage in PvP content. Therefore, I'm not at a huge advantage if I'm on my player PVM character versus somebody who is on a low-end PvP character. And with all that being said, that brings us to our next topic, is there aren't really any cookie cutter builds like there are in World of Warcraft. How many times do you guys remember being in a raid group and the raid leader saying, hey, you need to move this talent over to here and this talent to here. Also, we need you to play resto instead of balance or something similar to that. In Ultima Online Outlands, there aren't any cookie cutter builds, and everybody is free to do what they want. You can be a blacksmith and a miner if that's all you want to do. Or if you are an adventurer and you're doing tons of damage at bosses and all that cool stuff, you're free to play any type of builds that you want, as there aren't cookie cutter builds and there's always new updates that are changing things constantly, all while not gimping other and old builds. It reminds me a lot of like Path of Exile and Wolfson, if you guys played any of that. It's just so much fun coming up with different builds and putting them to the test. And I've met some really cool people that have came up with some really, really weird builds that you wouldn't think would work out that end up being massive, massive amounts of damage and just so much fun to play. In World of Warcraft, the Dungeon Finder and the Raid Finder, as great of a quality of life patch that it was, I feel like it really ruined World of Warcraft and took it down a path that, yes, it was a lot easier to get content done in a shorter amount of time, but it took it the social aspect and it pulled it straight out of it. In World of Warcraft, when you queue up with 4 random players, if you mess up, you're what's wrong with the world today, and you are especially that if you're a tank or a healer. There is no room for error, and there are very few people that are helpful. If you've joined a group that maybe isn't the best group ever, it's really easy just to leave it and join up another one, all the while until you find somebody that's extremely geared and will just carry you through the content. Same with guilds. As I had said earlier, when I was raid leading in World of Warcraft, it became apparent that if we were not able to down a boss every single night, people were going to leave and I would be fighting the raid boss throughout that following week in order to staff up, as we will call it, because it definitely felt more like a job. And Ultima Online groups are formed organically and friendships are made. New players and veteran players alike working together and at the same time both working towards the goal and gaining something from the same content versus one suffering in one way or another, like in WoW, as we previously talked about. All in all, Blizzard, if you're listening, go back to being Blizzard. Don't let Big Brother Activision shove you around. Go back to when World of Warcraft was great and everybody really enjoyed it. Look at some of the other games and where they're seeing success from and try to copy that, because other games are taking what you were successful at and making great strides with that. But for me, at least until the next expansion comes out, I will be playing 100% of the time in Ultima Online Outlands. I hope that some of you guys take a leap with me and come play over there, as it's a lot of fun. Sure, the graphics reflect that of a 25-year-old Wizard game because That's exactly what it is, just that these people have taken the core game of Ultima Online and developed it into something customized and something more up to date now in 2021. It's a beautiful game, and I'm having tons and tons of fun. So, with that being said, guys, those of you that are on Outlands with me, it is time for our raffle. And today's raffle is going to be a little bit different. If you want to be in the raffle, all you got to do is just comment below what your favorite thing about Ultima Online Outlands is. That way, everybody that is not from Ultima Online Outlands can see what a wonderful community this is and will hopefully come hang out with us. All right, guys, let's jump in and do this raffle. All right, and here we are. We've got everybody listed that participated in last week's raffle. Remember, all you got to do this week is just comment below why you love Ultima Online Outlands, and then you'll be entered into a raffle for your chance at up to 100,000 gold. So let's see who's going to win. PJO, congratulations, my man. Let's see how much you're going to win. All right, and as you guys can see, I've got on here anywhere from 1 to 100. Let's go. A little bit lower than normal, but hey, 20,000 check coming straight at you, man. All you got to do is just message me on Discord, and I will gladly meet you in shelter. If you're thinking about playing Ultima Online Outlands, just make sure to go to www.uooutlands.com and follow the instructions there. It's free to play and tons of fun. If you want to see more, just check out my channel. There's tons and tons of Ultima Online videos, and make sure and subscribe if you haven't, and give this video a like. I also stream on Outlands every Wednesday and Saturday night at 8:30 Eastern, and at the end of every weekend video, we do a beer of the day. This beer of the day is actually going to be Angry Scotsman, the old rusty Kiltpin. This is a brewery here in Oklahoma City. They are one of the newer ones in town, and not gonna lie, I have been drinking on this in streams in past, so it's not necessarily a new beer for me, but it is a pretty good beer if I do say so myself. So, that being said, guys, skål! I like it. Scottish style export ale. Guys, I'll see you on Outlands. Pwn Star out.